never had like someone I was looking up to in business that was an agent.
Okay, gotcha. But you had mentors in other ways.
Yeah, so I had people like, people that I would like watch on social media. I would start going to their conferences.
Yeah.
But I would say largely I have not had someone who I feel like was investing in me. But people that do have that, I think it's such a great asset.
Yeah.
I recognize to some extent, like sometimes I wish I had that. But I've always invested in my education.
Okay.
So
I was about to bring that up. Yeah.
So like I bought books. I've gone to conferences.
Yes.
I put myself like I stretch myself by paying to go to things that it's like,
let's dive into that.
So I would say those things, like those investments in myself, although I had no one sitting next to me, like, okay, do point A, point B, whatever the case may be. Like I've invested in my own education so much that it's like, it all worked out.
Yeah. And I want to dive into the next step of like investment in education, because honestly, like you are like the person in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
Every time that I'm trying to make a big investment, I think about you and what you say, and it's like make that big investment because it's going to be the education that you need on the other side.
Yes.
And I will say that I do not regret it. And so I would love if you can share your perspective on that. And like, don't be afraid to even announce the prices, because I think that a lot of entrepreneurs are considered in a space of stuck because they're not growing anymore. They feel like, well, my business is, doing great. It's improving. It's not, sinking, but it's pretty stagnant. We're okay. But like your business can be a lot better in scaling in a lot bigger way if you were to actually like get out of your box and do something different. So like from your perspective, like I love what you tell me about this.
Yeah.
So like let's dive into that.
Okay. And I would say this for someone who's like, my business is consistent. I'm happy where I'm at. If you're fine and happy with where you are, then keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
But if you're like, okay, I really want to go to the next level. I know that I need to be different. I need a shift. I don't go to a lot of conferences. I tend to go to kind of the same ones. But I heard someone say, pay any price to be around a person of excellence. And I can attest, the most I've ever paid was $10,000 to go to a mastermind. And
which is crazy.
And it was at a time.
Maybe right now I'm saying that because I don't know, but I will probably understand
the moment,
later.
For me, it was crazy too, because I was not at the point in my career that I felt like, should I be making this type of investment? Maybe I should be making like a $2,000 investment, or maybe like a $1,000 investment.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying for someone to go out, but I will say what it broke for me is like, I know when I start doing some other things, I have no problem with what I'm going to charge because I've invested in myself much more.
Yeah, that's good.
Another thing I would say too, when you're trying to decide about conferences, I'm really careful about who speaks into my life. So I would never go to a conference if I did not trust this person's input. So it's like if you just saw someone on social media one week and they have a conference, but you don't have a frame of reference for their character, their values, what do they believe? Like I would say like the people that I go to their conferences, I've either followed them for years, even before I made the decision to make that $10,000 investment.
Yeah.
Like I had taken other programs with them to know, oh, this $10,000 is easy because I spent $200 with you and found a return, or I spent $97 with you and got a return.
Yeah.
So I think it's be wise with who you choose to, because you're paying them, but they need to be delivering too. So
like don't just like buy based on like the popularity, like really understand their character.
Yeah, or if your friend is like, oh, I go to this person's conference, I wouldn't say that I would go to every friend's suggestion of a conference either, because you have to think about what is it that you want. So the people that I go into, I notice their personalities. They're very, very bold, outspoken personalities, very strong in their faith. They're very, very wealthy. And so it's like, I know that I want to achieve a certain level of wealth. I know that I want to have a certain character. So I'm not just paying, I'm not going because they're wealthy.
Yeah.
Like I'm going because I like how bold they are as a person. I like how bold they are in their faith. I like how they're unapologetic about their beliefs. I like how they give, like there's so many different things about this person. And it's like, yes, I want to have a business model in line with yours, but I trust your character. There's a lot of wealthy people that are miserable.
Yeah.
I'm not going to invest in you so that you can teach me how to be miserable too.
No, that's true.
You know, like I want to be around someone that is wealthy in a lot of aspects. So I think, especially in a world, because there's so many different things that you can buy and invest to.
Yeah.
Like really watch people and don't, and don't necessarily just jump into the first thing you see, but follow this person for a while and make sure that, okay, it is a no-brainer for me to give this person my money. But just kind of wrapping it up, like investing in myself and putting myself in positions outside of my environment, I think was really important too. Right. Because you need to see and hear, and just, even if you go by yourself, I'm telling you, traveling to a conference by yourself, like something about it, like I always come back feeling different. My first all of my conferences up until I got married, you know, I've always gone by myself. Just because I feel like it forces you to connect and meet someone and have dinner by yourself, and it stretches you in a different way. But it's by far one of the best things I've ever done.
I know that year's coming. Right now, I don't know. I'm still coming out of that space. I do feel like God is calling me to be in that space, you know, sometime. Because you're right. Like when you are going somewhere that you don't know anyone, and honestly, I always come into contact with people. Every conference I go to, every church conference, I always come in contact with people that travel alone. And I'm like, dang, girl, you're so brave. You're so brave.
And there's nothing wrong with taking someone along the ride with you. You know, I think I was at a point where I didn't have a lot of people that were wanting to do the same things that I was doing. So I had to go alone. It was either like, if you're going to wait for someone to be ready to go when you want to go, you're never going to go.
Come on.
You know, when I became a realtor, I didn't tell anybody. I quit my job for like 3 months, and my mom didn't even know, you know, because it's just like, I knew at that moment in my life, I just had to make the leaps. And I think it was easier for me to do certain things with not telling anyone, because if someone would have been like, well, why are you doing that? I knew where my faith was at the time, that anything could have stopped me. Like if someone was like, oh, that's stupid, I probably would have been like, oh, dang, is this stupid? You know? And so because I knew how vulnerable and just kind of fragile I was in the moment, I'm like, oh, I'm not telling anyone. You know?
Okay, that's a really good turn to take, because I'm sure that many people are probably in a space, or have been in a space, where you are trying to elevate yourself to the next level, personally, professionally, in your business, mentally, all the things. And then like you look around you and you don't feel like anyone is coming with you. Right. And so how do you, for yourself, like, when did you get to that space to say, you know what, I have got to do this for myself, because I want to take myself to the next level. And in order for me to do that, like, I do have to get out of my own way. For you, it sounds like it was, okay, going to a conference, like pouring into yourself in a whole different way. And I feel like there's a transition or a time in entrepreneurship when you sound foreign to people because they're not there yet. And so it's like, how did you get to a space, or even communicate to people? Maybe you didn't communicate. Maybe you were just like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do for me. And, but for some people, it's like, why are we so afraid to elevate ourselves?
Well, I mean, that's such a big question. I would say making the decision that I'm going to have to do some hard, uncomfortable things to make it probably started even before I went into entrepreneurship. So I joined the military in 2023. It started off of a conversation I was having with my son's father. You know, he had already, you know, graduated college, making great money. And I remember Anthony did not have socks. And, you know, I hadn't received his child support yet. And we were kind of going back and forth on the phone. And I'm like, I should not have to even have this conversation over like some socks. You know what I mean? It's like the conversation was just really, really tense. It wasn't really productive. And I'm like, I got off the phone and was like, I shouldn't even have to ask him to help me buy socks. At this time, I was living in Section 8 housing. You know, I was getting food assistance. I had a full-time job, but I was trying to figure out how I'm going to finish college. And I just made that decision, like, I cannot be in this position. It's ridiculous. At the end of the day, I'm his primary parent. I should be able to afford to get my son some socks. And so I was just trying to decide what can put me there the quickest. That kind of the decision. Like, what are my options? You know, I can keep going to school part-time, working full-time. I know some people at the time in the military, I kind of looked at what are all the different things that could arrive from it. And I just made the decision that, okay, well, I'm going to join the military. This is what I'm going to do. And I did that for 8 years. But I would say that being able to make hard decisions started way back then, kind of fast forwarding to now of, okay, making the decision to go to this conference. I just knew inside of me I needed to be different. I needed to make different decisions, that I couldn't stay where I am currently. And I think having when you really want to change, you'll do anything to change.
Come on.
And so you have to make a decision. You may not like what you're doing. You may not like where you're at, but how willing are you to change? Mm-hmm. Are you really, really ready to change? Because sometimes we just like to complain. And I feel like if you make
that part,
if you're really, really ready to change, you'll do anything to make that happen.
Anything.
And so I think that's kind of when I was like, I'm going to go to this conference.
Yeah.
I'm used, I've always kind of felt like I don't fit in. So that part doesn't really bother me. Like I've always kind of felt like the odd person out. And so I think.
You say that, but I don't. Yeah. Maybe I don't see that. I don't know.
I in high school, like I had severe social anxiety. Nobody would know. I was nominated for homecoming. I did student government, but I would profusely sweat walking into Topeka High's cafeteria. And So it's like I've always kind of felt like a social loner. Like I know a lot of people, but I'm not close to a lot of people. And so I think I've always kind of had this independent sense of like, I'm okay showing up, like I'll meet you at the party. It's okay. I can meet you there. So I've always kind of been a little bit independent that way. But I think when it came to, oh no, I cannot be here. Like I cannot sleep. Like there's no way I'm going to be here. When I got to that point is when I started making some of those decisions.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Mm-hmm. That's so good.